2 weeks ago, my Auntie Barbara went into a nursing home. And she'd been there a few days, and she turned to my cousin Carol, and she said, "Carol, is this my last stop?" And Carol said, "Yes, Mum, it is. Is that okay?" Now, I think this is the reason we don't think about nursing homes. We don't talk about them. We just want to ignore their existence. It's because they're our last stop. But what on earth are we playing at? If they're our last stop, shouldn't they be fabulous? Shouldn't they be fantastic? Historically, a multi-generational family looked after the elder generation, but that multi-generational family doesn't exist anymore. The economic success of the younger generation depends on them being able to live and work wherever they choose. And you can bet your bottom dollar that is not next door to Mum and Dad. So who is going to look after the elderly? When you add the fact that medicine in the last 50 years has added 30 years to our lifespan, you can see we've got a bit of a problem. It's growing and it's older, and we need to do something about it. And it falls upon often the shoulders of the women of society to look after the elderly. We really need to be looking at this. Do you know the poem, "When I am old, I shall wear purple"? Yeah? And I'll wear a red hat that doesn't suit me. And I'll spend my money on brandy and satin slippers. And I think there's even a bit that says, "And I'll spit in the street somewhere by Tesco's." Well, I think that's what care homes need. They need an injection of purple. They need some life. They don't need to be beige and boring and humdrum. They need an injection of purple. So I've talked about why we don't want to think about care homes, but what I actually want to talk about this afternoon is why don't we want to go into a care home? What is it about care homes that frankly makes us all do this? Well, I think I've identified 3 reasons. The first one, very basic, very simple, very easy to fix. Food. Food is fundamental to us. My God, we've been talking about lunch today. If we want to celebrate something, what do? We go out for dinner. And every time you turn on the TV, what's the TV programme? You can guarantee it's a cookery programme. Fundamentally important. In a care home, it is often a chore that you need to get through in the day, and it is beige, it is boring, and it's bland very often. So the second reason I think people don't want to go into care homes is lack of identity and purpose. So you go into a care home and you are no longer Edna, that used to train Rhodesian Ridgebacks and show at crufts. You are Edna, who sits in the corner wearing a beige cardi. And the third reason I think people don't want to go into care homes is loss of autonomy. You no longer are in control of your own life. You're part of the system, you're part of the institution. Well, my God, we've got to change that one. So let's start with food. I want to tell you a story. And I ought to point out at this point, I go into a lot of care homes, and I eat in quite a lot of care homes because I help families find care homes. So it's really important to me that care homes are everything they can possibly be. Fantastic places. So I went with a client to a care home, and Clara and I went along, and we decided we were going to have lunch in this care home because she was a real foodie, and she wanted to make sure that everything the care home was promising her, they were going to deliver. This care home was very swanky. I mean, it had all the bells and whistles, very fabulous looking place, well in excess of £1,000 a week, well in excess. So Clara and I are sitting at the table and we're chatting amongst the ladies. And whilst we're chatting, I'm watching the carers in the corner serve the food. Now, Clara and I are already a little bit apprehensive about this care home because they were serving us wearing blue plastic disposable gloves and blue plastic disposable aprons. I don't know about you, but if I was served food in a restaurant, where somebody was wearing blue plastic disposable gloves, I'd be having serious doubts about the quality of the food that was going to come out of that kitchen. So anyway, that to one side, I'm watching the carer in the corner serve the food. And she's serving mashed potato, and it won't come off the spoon. And I'm not joking, she is giving it everything she's got. In the end, she scrapes it off with her hands onto my plate. At this point, I'm thrilled she's wearing blue plastic disposable gloves. I really am delighted. But that's no way to treat anybody, least of all people who are in the last stage of their lives when things should be brilliant. But what can we do about it? Well, I think there's a really simple solution. Open the restaurants in the care homes to the public. I think I could guarantee on day one the carers would not be serving up the food wearing blue plastic disposable gloves and aprons. The first day that care home was open to the public, I think I could guarantee they would not be using their hands to serve it. And I think I could guarantee on day one that the quality of the food would be up here, because they served Clara and I absolute rubbish. So, you open the care home restaurants to the public, and all of a sudden the standard goes whoosh through the floor. But you've got the public coming in, so you've got mums and daughters, you've got friends, you've got business meetings coming in to have coffee and cake, lunch. You've got an injection of purple, you've got an injection of life going on in the care home. So that benefits the residents enormously. But you also benefit the care homes. Because if the public are coming into your care home and the care homes are getting it right, then the positive publicity that care home will generate is enormous to them. It's fabulous for them. But you also benefit the community. Because this big building that sits on the edge of their town or their village that they never go into is in effect a hotel. It's got everything a hotel would have, plus care. So you're opening up this venue to the community where they can have coffee and cake, have a meeting, go in for lunch. That, to me, seems like a win-win-win situation. So the second point I mentioned, which is identity and purpose. You go into a care home, you need to maintain your identity, right? So, I was driving to a care home. It was 2 hours away, this care home. I was looking on behalf of a client. And when I turned up, I'm not exaggerating, I swear. When I turned up, I was met at the front door, not by, hello, how are you? But by a carer who stood at the front door with her hands like this and said, we have sickness and diarrhea, do you still want to come in? Quite frankly, no, I didn't. However, I had just driven 2 hours to get to that care home, so whilst using an awful lot of that antiseptic gel as I walked around, I went around the care home. It became obvious very quickly that I was being treated in exactly the same way as the residents were being treated. I was in the way. I was superfluous to requirements. This carer had a job, and she was going to do her job, and anybody that got in the way just got pushed to the side. That is not how we should treat residents of care homes who are in the last stage of their life. In America, there is a nursing home that has opened its doors to a nursery school. So you've got 83-year-olds and 3-year-olds painting together, yeah? And drawing together and singing together. It has been a resounding success. But it falls back to those same principles. You're opening the care home to the public, standards rise. An injection of purple for the residents because you've got mums and dads and aunts and uncles and little kids all running around. How fantastic is that? And the care home benefits because everybody's coming in and saying, what a cool place, what a fantastic place to live. And the community benefits. All of a sudden there's a new nursery school they can use. Win, win, win. You may have read about it. In Amsterdam, there was a nursing home that wanted to inject a little bit of purple into their residents' lives. And at the same time in Amsterdam, there was a huge shortage of student accommodation. So I thought, I know, let's invite 6 students to come and live in the nursing home. Not a normal combination, you might think. They charged no rent. The only thing the students had to do was spend 30 hours a month with the residents. Oh my God, another resounding success. The 2 groups of people worked together, talked together, listened to each other, really valued and learnt from each other. And there's a great photograph of one of the residents going down the corridor on a skateboard, which I thought was fantastic. And that might be a bit too much purple for some people, but at least you've got the choice. How fantastic is that? But again, it's a win-win-win situation, and you're raising standards and benefiting the residents, the care home, and the community. So the third point I mentioned was autonomy. How do we allow or make sure that residents of care homes live their own lives? Well, I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a story about Tony. Tony is a great guy. He is 84 years old, mentally sharp as a pin, physically very frail. Tony had asked me to find him a care home because a few months prior to that, he had fallen out of bed and he'd been unable to get back into bed on his own. So the only thing he could do was press his lifeline thing on his wrist, which he did. Paramedics came, and rather than help him back into bed, make sure he was okay, and let him go back to sleep, which is what he wanted to do, they took him to A&E. Now, in Tony's words, the resulting 48 hours were hell, and not something he ever wished to repeat. He really didn't like the experience, so he asked me to find him a care home. Tony had been housebound, was housebound. Because of his frailty, he couldn't get down the 2 front door steps. He'd just got 2 little steps, not big ones, and he just couldn't get out the front door, so he was housebound. He couldn't get up the stairs to the shower room, so he washed in the downstairs loo. He couldn't cook, so he relied upon Meals on Wheels coming into him every day, and he ate his lunch out of those silver trays, you know, the little pre-formed things. That's what he ate for lunch every day. And obviously he couldn't get to the shops, so he relied upon his neighbours once a fortnight bringing him in essentials. Tony was extremely isolated and very lonely. And he'd been living like this for 8 years. Just imagine if Tony had been familiar with the care home down the road, because he had popped in for coffee and cake to meet friends, gone there for lunch, got to know the building, got to know the people. Just imagine how his life would have been different for the previous 8 years. Atal Gawande did the Wreath Lectures at the beginning of the year, and he posed a really interesting question. He said, what makes older people want to get up in the morning? What makes them think, oh my God, today is gonna be a good day, oh God, I can't wait for today. What is it that makes them think that? And I thought, well, that's inspired. That is what we should be asking people in care homes. What is it that makes your day fabulous? So I thought I should ask some clients. So I asked Fiona. Fiona, what is it that you look forward to? What would you look forward to in a day? And she said, evening classes. I haven't finished learning yet. She's 96. How cool is that? But how simple, what a simple solution. You hold the evening classes in the care home. The residents benefit, my God, the staff benefit, but the community benefits. Everybody benefits from it. The care home benefits because you're bringing the public in, you're raising standards, and you're getting them some good publicity. And the community benefits. And then I asked Dora, what would make you get up in the morning? She didn't miss a beat. She said, clothes and new shoes. Straight there, I'm with her. I was with her all the way. She said, the problem is I can't get out to the shops. I can't get out to the shops to buy them. Now imagine if Dora lived in a care home and the care home had fashion shows and the shops came to Dora. How cool would that be? Who would want to live in that care home? I mean, that sounds quite cool to me. And then I asked Thomas, who was sort of hiding, I'll be honest. And I said, Thomas, now come on, what would make you have a great day? my lathe. Turns out Thomas has a double garage full of equipment that makes furniture, handmade furniture. He's been doing it for 80 years. But he can't get into the garage without help, and he can't lift a lot of the equipment without support. Imagine if Thomas lived in a care home, and in the care home you'd got a shed in the garden and all of Thomas's stuff came with him. He'd have residents, relatives, staff, local students, college students. Everybody could come and benefit from Thomas's experience and share in his knowledge. What would that do for the self-esteem and identity of Thomas? So in conclusion, I think care homes could become a venue, could become a lifestyle choice for people. They could become the nucleus of the new multi-generational family around which the community revolves. They could be the coffee shops, the restaurant, a place for workshops, evening classes, fashion shows, anything that the residents and the community want. Because isn't it about time we looked at care homes as a place we went to live? Thank you.